They said I was slipping, that I couldn't hear them, but I heard every word about the nursing home, the money, the passwords, and I didn't cry, I took notes. The wall between us was thin. Their voices slid through like cold air under a door. They thought I was too far gone, too weak to understand. But my ears worked just fine. My heart too. I heard my son say I was becoming a burden. I heard my daughter-in-law ask if I had updated my will. They spoke of selling the house. My house. The one where I raised him. The one where I tucked him into bed when he had fevers. The one where his tiny hand once gripped my finger. They spoke of power of attorney. Of transferring accounts. Of moving me somewhere where she'll be safe. I knew what that meant. Somewhere far. Somewhere small. Somewhere where the air smells like bleach and boiled peas. They thought I couldn't hear the numbers, the bank names, the codes, but I did. They spelled out my future like I was already gone. I sat in my chair, hands resting on my lap, staring at the blank television. My face didn't move. My eyes didn't blink. But inside I was wide awake, listening, memorizing. Their voices got quieter as they talked deeper into the night, but not quiet enough. My hearing aid sat on the table. They thought without it I was deaf. They forgot I wore these ears for over 70 years before those gadgets ever existed. I heard it all. Every cruel plan. Every greedy whisper. I didn't cry. I didn't call out. I didn't even sigh. No. I opened my notebook when they finally left. I wrote their words down. Word for word. Date. Time. Details. My hand steady. My mind sharper than they could imagine. They thought I was done. But I was just beginning. They said I was slipping, that I couldn't hear them, but I heard every word about the nursing home, the money, the passwords, and I didn't cry, I took notes. The wall between us was thin. Their voices slid through like cold air under a door. They thought I was too far gone, too weak to understand. But my ears worked just fine. My heart too. I heard my son say I was becoming a burden. I heard my daughter-in-law ask if I had updated my will. They spoke of selling the house. My house. The one where I raised him. The one where I tucked him into bed when he had fevers. The one where his tiny hand once gripped my finger. They spoke of power of attorney. Of transferring accounts. Of moving me somewhere where she'll be safe. I knew what that meant. Somewhere far. Somewhere small. Somewhere where the air smells like bleach and boiled peas. They thought I couldn't hear the numbers, the bank names, the codes, but I did. They spelled out my future like I was already gone. I sat in my chair, hands resting on my lap, staring at the blank television. My face didn't move. My eyes didn't blink. But inside I was wide awake, listening, memorizing. Their voices got quieter as they talked deeper into the night, but not quiet enough. My hearing aid sat on the table. They thought without it I was deaf. They forgot I wore these ears for over 70 years before those gadgets ever existed. I heard it all. Every cruel plan. Every greedy whisper. I didn't cry. I didn't call out. I didn't even sigh. No. I opened my notebook when they finally left. I wrote their words down. Word for word. Date. Time. Details. My hand steady. My mind sharper than they could imagine. They thought I was done, but I was just beginning. I gave them time. I gave them warmth. I gave them my hearing, and they gave me silence. I remember the days when money was tight, but love was full. When their father passed and I stood alone with a child on each side of me, I sold his watch to keep the roof over our heads. That watch had his heartbeat trapped inside it, but I let it go for them. I sewed their school uniforms late into the night, my fingers pricked and sore. Rice was rationed. Meat was a luxury, but their bellies were full, and they never went to school hungry. I packed their lunches every morning, wrapping little notes inside to remind them they were loved. I was there for every fever, every cough, every scraped knee. I remember the hospital visits, the sleepless nights by their beds, whispering prayers into the dark. I never once complained. My only wish was simple, that when my legs could no longer carry me, they would be my arms. That when my hearing faded, they would be my voice. I thought love worked like that. I thought sacrifice came full circle. But time passed. The phone call slowed. The visits stopped. Birthdays came and went with empty chairs. The house grew quieter. The mail thinner. No knocks on the door. No laughter in the kitchen. Just the hum of the refrigerator and the ticking of a lonely clock. I gave them my strength, my youth, my hearing, and they gave me silence. It started with small things. Questions tucked inside conversations like little stones in soup. Have you thought about updating your insurance? They'd ask, between bites of my chicken stew. Or, do you still remember all your passwords? Mom, with a laugh that didn't reach their eyes. I told myself they were being careful, caring, but it didn't feel that way. It felt like they were trying to draw the borders of a world without me in it. One Sunday, my son asked if I had named someone to make decisions for me just in case. I smiled. I stirred my tea, but my hand was shaking. I told him I'd think about it. I didn't, because I already had. They started to say things I'd never heard before. You're doing well for your age. Like my age was a disease I was temporarily outrunning. Like time hadn't already taken enough from me. And I'd nod and pretend it didn't sting. But it did. I noticed my daughter-in-law glancing around the house like it wasn't mine anymore. Her eyes landed on things too long. The cabinet, the grandfather clock, the china. Once I saw her take photos. She said it was for memories. But she didn't look nostalgic. She looked calculating. The grandkids used to run to me. Now they stayed on their phones, faces lit by screens I couldn't see. One of them, my youngest grandson, let it slip. Dad said you won't live here much longer. He was just a boy. He didn't know better. But his words hit like ice water down my back. I laughed, just a little, and changed the subject. But that night I didn't sleep. I started practicing my signature. Every night before bed, in the quiet, I wrote it over and over, hand cramping in the cold light of the desk lamp. Not because I was proud, but because I was scared. I was scared they'd forge it, that I'd be somewhere I didn't choose, signing things I didn't understand. My name used without me. So I memorized how it felt under my fingers. My own name, my own hand. They began treating my memory like a rumor. Did you already take your pills? Are you sure you didn't misplace it? Maybe you just forgot. I didn't forget. Not then. Not yet. But they needed me to doubt myself. So I almost did. I stopped sharing too much. I kept things to myself. I didn't tell them when I fell in the kitchen and bruised my hip. I didn't tell them when the microwave sparked. I didn't want to give them more reasons to take away my keys, or my home, or my life. They came less and less. But when they did come, they asked more and more. What's your bank again, Ma? Do you still have that old policy? Should we clean out the attic now or later? They didn't even pretend it was about helping me anymore. One evening, I heard them laugh after I left the room. It was low, but not quiet enough. Something about it won't be long now. I stood in the hallway, hand on the wall, steadying myself. I didn't go back in. I just turned off the lights and went to bed. I still made excuses. Still told myself it was stress, that they were worried, that maybe I was reading too much into things. Mothers do that. We protect them, even from our own pain. But my heart knew. I'd wake up early and sit by the window with my notebook, not to write down plans or memories, but just to remember who I was, to remind myself I still existed, that I still had thoughts and opinions and history. The house started to feel less like a home, more like a museum. When they were already mapping out for resale, I saw it in the way they touched things carefully, like curators, not like children. The food I cooked went untouched. They started bringing their own, packaged, sealed, safe, like I was a risk now. Like the woman who once fed them with her hands was no longer trustworthy with a spoon. They told me not to worry, but I worried, not for myself, but for the version of me they were building. Frail. Confused, replaceable. I knew she wasn't real, but I also knew they'd believe in her more than they believed in me. I kept practicing my name, every night, even when my hands hurt, even when the ink smudged. It became a ritual, a small rebellion. This is mine, I'd whisper. This is still mine. I didn't cry. Not yet. I wasn't ready to. I wasn't ready to admit that the love I gave was being exchanged for suspicion. That The warmth I poured was cooling into something else. Something hollow. But deep down I knew. The warning signs weren't whispers anymore. They were full sentences. Full conversations. Behind doors, over coffee, through text messages they thought I couldn't read. And still I made excuses. I wasn't confused. I was choosing silence. But not for long. It was supposed to be a family dinner. Roast chicken. My old recipe. The one they always asked for when they still called me mommy. They brought flowers. Smiled too wide. Kissed my cheek like it was a habit, not a feeling. The air was heavy, but I kept smiling too. I wanted to believe. The meal was rushed. No seconds. No lingering around the table like before. My son cleared his throat and slid a folder across the table. My daughter-in-law placed her hand over mine. Soft and heavy. We've been thinking, she started, about what's best. Papers. So many papers. Medical terms I didn't recognize. Legal words I had no time to read. They talked fast, like rehearsed actors. You'll be safer. It's just temporary. We want you to be cared for. You deserve rest. They called it a retirement community. Said it like it was a vacation. All your meals prepared. Doctors right there. No more housework. Their voices blurred into a hum. I stared at the black ink. Sign here. And here. And here. My hand trembled. Not from weakness. From rage I dared not show. My son held out the pen like a weapon wrapped in kindness. Just trust us, Mom. My grandson looked away. Couldn't meet my eyes. I wanted to say no. To shout. But I didn't. I was outnumbered. Outmaneuvered. Outloved. And tired. So very tired. So I signed. Small, slow strokes. My name surrendered in pieces. The next morning, they were efficient. Like movers clearing a house for an estate sale. My bedroom was emptied before I even finished my coffee. Drawers pulled out. Clothes folded. Jewelry cases quietly zipped shut. My linens packed into plastic bags. By noon, a cheerful van waited in the driveway. The driver avoided my eyes. My daughter-in-law chirped instructions to the staff like she was hosting a party. My son guided me gently by the elbow like I was fragile glass. We drove away from my home. My home. The one I bought. The one I bled for. The one where my husband's voice still lived in the corners. Gone. The facility smelled like bleach and distant flowers. Bright flyers on the walls. Smiling nurses. Soft music playing like a lullaby for people already half asleep. Your children said this is the best place for you. The intake woman smiled. Her badge said Lisa. She spoke softly, like I was a child. They handed me a schedule. Breakfast at 7. Bingo at 10. Medications at noon. You'll love it here. The words floated around me like plastic confetti. I nodded, smiled thinly, sat on the stiff bed with its plastic sheets that crinkled under me. Hours passed, then days. No calls, no visits, just forms, just staff knocking before entering, just pills in tiny paper cups. I wasn't a mother anymore. I was a resident. One night I couldn't sleep. The overhead light buzzed faintly. I stared at my phone, willing it to ring. It didn't. So I scrolled, just to feel the world move. That's when I saw it. A listing on Facebook Marketplace. My chair. My favorite chair. The one I nursed both my babies in. The one my husband rocked me in when my mother died. Sold. $40. While I slept beneath fluorescent lights. I stared at the photo of that chair, sitting in someone else's driveway. A stranger's driveway. The caption said, gently used. Pick up today. I touched the screen with my finger. Cold glass beneath my skin. I wanted to scream. To shatter the phone against the wall. But I didn't. I just stared. Quiet. Frozen. More listings followed. My sewing machine. My wedding china. My husband's clock. All reduced to numbers and pickup times. My life, dismantled and bartered while I swallowed pudding and listened to the low hum of strangers wheeling carts. The room was small. A twin bed. A single dresser. Plastic flowers on the windowsill. They thought it would feel cozy. It didn't. It felt like waiting. I overheard the staff sometimes. Her family visits are rare. They said it gently, like wrapping poison in cotton. But I was still here. Still breathing. Still listening. I knew every inch of what they had done and what they had taken. I lay in that narrow bed, hands folded on my stomach, staring at the blank ceiling. My name was still mine. My mind was still sharp. My ears still heard. And quietly, beneath the weight of that silence, something inside me began to harden. Not anger. No. Something colder. Sharper. They thought I was done. But I was not done. The silence was thick, but I knew how to sit inside it. I wasn't screaming. I was writing. In my top drawer, under the pastel nightgowns they issued me, I kept my old hearing aid. The one they thought I didn't need anymore. The one I told them had broken. It hadn't. It worked just fine. I hid it like a pearl in a shell. When staff whispered outside my door, I slipped it in. Their voices drifted through like smoke under a door. Her accounts were moved over already. The son said not to bother with the family meeting. The furniture sold fast. I sat still, listened, memorized. My notebook sat open on my lap, covered by the light blanket they gave me for comfort. Underneath, my pen moved slowly. Names, dates, times, words, exact phrases. No emotion, just truth. They thought I was fading. I was filing. I wrote every visitor's name, every phone call, every nurse's comment, every overheard plan. I recorded everything like a court recorder, cold and exact. The pages filled day by day. Then I remembered my cousin, Elaine, retired now, but once the sharpest stenographer in the county courthouse. We hadn't spoken in years, not because of anger, just life, distance, but blood still runs quiet and deep. I called her from the payphone down the hall, the one by the vending machine. My voice calm, my words careful. Elaine, I said, I need your ears and your memory. She came, sat with me for hours. I slid the notebook across the small table in the visitor's room. She read each page with her finger tracing the words. No tears, no questions, just a firm nod when she reached the end. We can build with this, she whispered. This is evidence. I requested my medical files. Quietly, calmly. The front desk nurse raised an eyebrow but handed over the forms. Family usually handles these requests, she said softly. I smiled. I'm still here, I replied. The files were thick. I read every page, every medication, every diagnosis they suggested. The words were designed to sound harmless, but I read between them. Mild cognitive decline, early signs of confusion, recommended supervised living. They had built a paper version of me, a weaker, smaller me, but they hadn't counted on me reading it. They hadn't counted on me knowing my own mind. At night, I read the laws, the rights of the elderly, the guardianship loopholes, the property transfers, the power of attorney documents I signed under pressure. I read until my eyes burned. I called the Office of Elder Affairs. Quietly, anonymously. I asked questions, wrote down answers, learned terms I never wanted to know. Undue influence, fraudulent transfer, medical coercion. I made copies of everything, stored them in manila folders hidden behind old puzzle books and knitted scarves. Each copy a small weapon, each folder a shield. The staff began to notice my quiet energy. One nurse asked if I was sleeping well. I smiled. Better every day. She didn't know how true that was. The facility director requested a meeting. Sat across from me with that professional, tight-lipped sympathy. Your children are doing their best, she said. They've taken great care to ensure your comfort. I smiled again. Small. Controlled. I know exactly how much care they've taken, I said softly. She blinked but said nothing more. Elaine returned often. Each visit, we reviewed my notes. She brought her old stenographer's machine once, the keys still smooth under her fingers. She recorded everything I dictated. My memory poured into her tapes, sealed tight like courtroom records. Every signature I practiced now had a purpose. Every date I wrote now carried weight. I wasn't confused. I was building. Quietly. They still didn't call. My son and his wife. My grandchildren. They stayed silent, certain I was tucked away. Fading, harmless. But I wasn't fading. I was sharpening. The staff continued their rounds. The bingo games continued. The pudding cups stacked up untouched. I let them think I was adjusting, accepting, settling into my new home. But in my mind, I was already outside those walls. I could see my house, my real bed, my garden, my husband's trees still growing tall in the back corner. They thought I was finished, that my world had shrunk to plastic sheets and pill cups. But my world was expanding, growing stronger, rooted in every word I had captured. I wasn't screaming. I was writing. And soon, they would read every word. Elaine knew someone. She always did. Her name is Gloria, she said, handing me the card. She knows this kind of thing. Patient rights, elder fraud, quiet cases like yours. I called, my voice calm, my words deliberate. I need to speak with Gloria. I have records. Gloria met me in the visitor's room 2 days later. No clipboard, no nervous glances. She looked me directly in the eyes. That was the first kindness I'd felt in months. I've read situations like this, she said, her voice low. But you've done more than most. You've documented. I slid the notebooks across the table. The folders, the copied medical files, the dates, the signatures, the bank records I had managed to access before they locked me out completely. My hands didn't tremble as I spoke. They thought I was confused, I said softly. I was documenting. Gloria read for hours. She took notes, asked quiet questions. Occasionally she nodded, as if a puzzle was falling into place. They pressured you to sign these while fully competent, she asked. I answered simply, yes. They moved assets without your consent? Yes. They sold your personal property while declaring you medically incompetent? Yes. She sat back, exhaled. This is elder financial abuse, coercion, and fraudulent transfer. And it's well documented. Her voice wasn't angry. It was steady, precise. I liked that. I didn't want loud rage. I wanted truth, law, structure. The next weeks moved quietly, like a slow storm rolling in. Gloria filed motions, contacted the banks, sent letters to the facility's legal team. Every form signed with my hand. My clear mind, my rightful consent. The financial trail was clear. Bank transfers into my son's name. Sales of my belongings without proper power of attorney. False medical claims to justify my placement here. They spoke like I couldn't hear. I told Gloria one afternoon. Now they'll hear from every lawyer I hired. My son received the first certified letter. I imagined his face when he opened it, sitting at the kitchen table I once polished for him as a boy. My daughter-in-law received hers next. The house title froze. The accounts locked. The investigation official. I didn't call them. They didn't call me. Silence was our only language now. But this silence was mine. The facility director called me into her office one morning. Her smile thin, her voice careful. There seems to be some legal matters arising. Your family's decisions are being reviewed. I simply nodded. Yes, I said. I'm aware. When court dates were set, I attended every one. In my best dress. Hair done. Notes in my lap. They spoke about me like I wasn't there. But I was. I watched their faces shift from confidence to confusion to quiet fear. Gloria spoke firmly, presented evidence, laid out timelines, my notes, my records, my voice steady on recorded statements. The judge listened. He read, and he nodded. The ruling came quietly without drama. The power of attorney revoked. The property transfers declared void. The bank accounts restored. Fraud charges opened. Guardianship removed entirely. I was declared fully competent, wrongfully manipulated, and financially abused. My son and his wife sat stiff beside their lawyer, avoiding my gaze. My grandson wept silently. The others didn't even come. I walked out of that courtroom with my cousin's arm gently steadying me. My steps slow but strong. 2 weeks later, I signed the release papers at the facility myself. No one from my family came to see me off. I didn't tell them when I was leaving. I owed them nothing now. The staff wheeled my small suitcase to the curb. The sun was warm. The breeze clean. A private car waited, arranged by Gloria. As we drove, I watched the streets I hadn't seen in months roll past. My city. My home. Still mine. When we pulled into my driveway, I stared at the house for a long moment. The for sale sign was gone. My garden waited, a little wild but alive. The tree my husband planted still standing tall. The front door opened with my key. My key. The air smelled faintly of dust and old wood. But it was my dust, my walls, my life. I stood in my living room, where sunlight poured through familiar curtains. The quiet hummed around me, not the sterile silence of that facility, but the soft hush of a home breathing again. I placed my notebook on the kitchen table, the one where I used to pack lunches, my name signed clearly on every page, my story written with steady hands. They thought I was finished, that I would disappear into soft rooms and quiet nurses. But I didn't. I took it all back. Quietly. I didn't need to scream. I had already recorded it. The tape spoke for me. My cousin Elaine transferred every recording onto clean, crisp files. The whispered conversations, the planning, the greed. Their voices, smooth and cold, captured forever. Gloria forwarded them to the court. Quietly, without warning. Their own words now official evidence. The judge listened. The lawyers reviewed. There was no need for my voice to rise. My silence said enough. I amended my will next. The lawyer sat across from me at my kitchen table, the one they had tried to sell. My pen steady as I signed. Every name removed. Every beneficiary erased. Their inheritance dissolved with the calm flick of my wrist. The house sold, but not to their liking. The proceeds divided exactly where they wouldn't want them to go. Donations to the community shelter my daughter-in-law once mocked. Scholarships for young women studying law, like Gloria. A large gift to elder abuse prevention programs. I watched the transfers process with quiet satisfaction. The money that once tempted them now building futures they'd despise. They never saw it coming, because I gave them no warning. No goodbye. I changed my phone number. My address became a post office box. They searched, I'm sure. Called old friends. Left messages with people who no longer had answers. I left no breadcrumbs. One morning, I sat in my small apartment. The radio played softly, an old jazz tune my husband once hummed to me on long drives. My tea steamed gently. My hands folded in my lap. The phone lit up beside me. Not once. Dozens of missed calls. My son. My daughter-in-law. Even my eldest granddaughter, who hadn't spoken to me in years. Panic leaves fingerprints, even through silence. They used to whisper near me like I was furniture. Now I own the building they're being evicted from. Court fees mounted. Restitution orders arrived. Frozen assets cracked their financial shell wide open. They'd have to explain to neighbors, friends, co-workers. The truth no longer hidden in family secrets, but filed in public records. I never answered the phone. Never responded to their letters. What was there left to say? They had written the ending long ago. I simply read it to the court. Sometimes at night, I imagined their kitchen. The same kitchen where they had whispered over me like I wasn't there. Now, filled with lawyers' calls, unpaid bills, and regret. Their voices once dripped with fake concern. It's what's best for you, Mom. We're protecting you, Mom. Now, I imagine their voices filled with confusion, anger, fear. But I didn't need to hear it. I had heard enough. Elaine visited often. We sat by the window with tea. Sometimes we said nothing, just listened to the wind. The peace was full where the noise had once been hollow. I never thought you'd go this far, she said once. I smiled. Neither did they. The radio played softly. My tea cooled slowly. The phone blinked quietly. Their panic was noisy. My revenge was still. No screaming. No fights. Just truth, delivered softly, like a needle sliding through silk. They thought they had buried me, but I had rooted myself instead. And from those roots, justice grew. The calls didn't stop. Not after the court orders. Not after the restitution payments drained their accounts. If anything, the calls grew louder, more desperate. But I didn't pick up. The machine recorded everything. I let it. Their voices cracked through the speaker like brittle branches. Mom, please. This has all gone too far. My son's voice, once so steady, now quivering. We made mistakes. My daughter-in-law's voice came next, sticky sweet, wrapping apology in excuses. You know we were trying to do what was best. We didn't know how bad it looked. We were scared. We love you. They quoted old memories like currency they thought still held value. Remember when we planted that tree in the yard? The one Dad loved? We're still your family. We were a family. Family. That word used to mean something warm. Now it felt like paper rubbed thin between my fingers. The letters came next. Longhand, rushed, messy. My son's handwriting shaky on the page. He wrote about Christmas mornings. About the snowman we built when he was 8. He wrote about how much he missed me. How sorry he was. How stress and money confused everything. He didn't mention the chair sold for $40. The house listed while I was still breathing. The forced signatures. The silent months. Old family friends reached out too. Mutual connections I hadn't heard from in years. He regrets it, they'd say gently over the phone. They all do. They didn't mean for it to go so far. They're scared, you know. Scared. Now they were scared. I listened to their messages while watering my plants. The sun warm on my face. My garden alive again. My husband's tree still growing tall in the back corner. I smiled into my tea. They cried into my voicemail. I laughed into my tea. The books on my shelf gathered soft dust again, but only from time, not neglect. I read them slowly, savoring each word. No one rushed me. No one interrupted. The house breathed quietly with me. They tried one final letter, a carefully worded plea from a lawyer they could still afford. Seeking reconciliation and closure, it read. Open to supervised discussions. I folded it neatly, slid it into the drawer with the others. The drawer I no longer needed to lock. I didn't respond. There was no rage inside me. No boiling anger needing release. That would have been too easy for them. What I had was silence. They once used silence as their weapon, as their distance. Now it was my shield, my peace. The house grew soft again. The birds returned. The mailman nodded kindly each morning. The neighborhood children played down the block, their laughter distant and clean. Elaine visited with fresh bread and new books. We sat together by the window, sipping tea, sometimes speaking, sometimes not. She never asked if I would forgive them. She knew better. Do you miss them? She asked once. I looked out the window. The tree swayed gently. The wind hummed softly through its branches. I miss who they used to be, I said. But that's not who they are now. The phone blinked again that night. Another message. Another voice cracking under the weight of their own choices. I turned the volume down. Let the blinking light flash in the corner of my eye. Like a dying star. My nights were no longer filled with restless wondering. I didn't rehearse conversations I'd never have. I didn't write responses I'd never send. I let the silence do all the speaking. Sometimes I thought of the young boy who held my hand walking to school. Of the tiny fingers gripping mine in the dark when fevers burned bright. Of bedtime stories and whispered prayers. That was a long time ago. That version of him was gone. I wasn't bitter. I wasn't waiting. I was done. They wanted noise, conflict, a chance to explain themselves, to soften the blow of their choices. But I owed them nothing. I had given them time. I had given them warmth. I had given them my hearing. And they had given me silence. Now I kept it. The apartment is small, but it breathes with me. Every Thursday, I buy fresh lilies from the corner florist. I like the way they open slowly, stretching wide toward the light. The air fills with their soft sweetness, and for days afterward, the whole place smells like something still blooming. I host poetry readings once a month. A few neighbors come. Some younger women from the community center. A retired teacher who brings cookies. We sit in a loose circle, books resting on our laps, voices steady and calm. We read softly, not for applause, but for the beauty of the words. I learn sign language now, not because I've lost my hearing. No, my ears still serve me well. I learn it because I want to, because I can. There's something graceful about speaking with your hands, about making words float in the air without sound, about connection that doesn't require noise. When I walk through the park, I walk slowly, not because I have to, because I choose to. The breeze moves through my hair and the birds chatter without urgency. My steps are sure. My heart steady. I'm alone, but I am not lonely. People often confuse the two. Sometimes people ask if my family visits. I simply smile and say, I have everything I need. And it's true. I carry no bitterness, no sharp stones in my pocket, only peace. There's a freedom in knowing you survived what was meant to break you, that you reclaimed what was quietly stolen, that you didn't need to shout to be heard. I think back sometimes to that night behind the thin wall, their voices slicing through the quiet like cold knives. They thought I was slipping, that I couldn't hear, that I couldn't understand. But I heard everything, and I understood more than they ever imagined. I didn't crumble. I didn't scream. I sat in my silence. I wrote. I planned. I acted. They silenced me once, but I heard everything, and I answered without a sound. The lilies bloom. The books fill my shelves. The sun warms my window, and I live, fully,